So, this all started 2 months ago. I had a FNAF video plan where I talked about every single game and my opinions on it. So I edited it down to 20 minutes. That took a couple hours. And so I got halfway through doing all the visuals for it. And I decided I needed a break because I deserved it, alright? I took 2 weeks off because my head hurt. I was looking at a screen for so long, it was crazy. And I come back to it and the footage is gone. Not the audio, the visuals. And those are a pain to find because a lot of them are still images. And the ones that aren't still images, you gotta make sure they're not copyrighted and that's the whole thing. So I took a month off because I was sad. Understandably so. So I come back and I do over half of it again. And I'm like, I could take a break. Another week passes. This is my mistake. I come back and I look at it. And the whole thing is error screens. And the weird thing is that some of the visuals are okay, but most of them are gone. I don't know what happened. I was betrayed. Oh, I've been gone for 2 months because this FNAF video wants to kill me. But I still have to make a video. And it's still gonna be this video. So this is what we're doing. I am taking the few scraps that still remain of that video, and we're just gonna make a new one out of it. This video, please subscribe for my sanity. This was more than 6 hours, so please subscribe and enjoy me talking about FNAF for the last time. So FNAF's been around for a long time. Like, longer than you'd think, actually. Isn't it like the 7 or 6 year anniversary? It's one of those. But the thing is, it's popular, but not as popular as it used to be. It's gone through an arc, I'd say. At the beginning, no one knew about it until really popular YouTubers looked at it, and then it was all anyone talked about. I mean, Markiplier got big using it. Game theories on it are one of the most popular ones they have. It elevated people, but with all these games, and the ones that are the ending, like FNAF 4, FNAF 6, and then FNAF 9. There's a lot going on. People aren't as interested. Now, I'm not saying no one is, because there is a definite niche of FNAF. I mean, look at Astral Spleef. He's gotten really popular off of it, too. A lot of YouTubers are able to use FNAF as an elevation thing. Kind of like how I did in the beginning. Ha! I'm calling myself out. But the thing is, I don't understand what's next for FNAF. I mean, if you look through all the games, all of them pretty much live off of the same basis. And those are the ones that are usually the most popular. FNAF 1 to FNAF 4 are very popular. Even FNAF 3, who wasn't popular at the time, still I feel holds higher in regards for most people for some of the newer ones. They worked on the basis of it's a first-person view. You can't really move. It's not an open world, and it's a point-and-click game. And it did well for that. When we get to Sister Location, it starts to change a little, and it started to tell a more cohesive story. The problem that people had with this is that there wasn't a lot of gameplay in the game. It didn't feel like a game in itself, it felt more like a visual novel. One of the things that I can attribute the most to the weirdness that is going on with FNAF right now is the jump from 2D point and click to 3D with the open world concept. Okay, we could talk about the glitches all day and how that made this a bad FNAF game, but I want to talk specifically about why the transfer from 2D to 3D kind of hurt the game in a way. And the most obvious thing we could talk about is jump scares. In 2D, especially when you're in first person and you're not moving around, you can move your animatronic body however you want to get the scariest reaction. The shaking in FNAF 1, and then the unhinging of the jaw in FNAF 4, because you don't see the body, you don't see how that would work well on a model. When you go into 3D, you have to take the model into effect with every step you're doing. And you have to make sure it stays with the model's rigging so it doesn't crop out of frame, so it doesn't look strangely. So a lot of the times, the unhinging of the jaw, which is unnatural and wouldn't look right on a rigging, you can't do that because it just won't look right. And you also have to take in fact that you can see the whole body and see the animatronics moving. And I know that you have rigging for the models in the 2D games, but because you're only seeing a certain part of its body, you can manipulate it in a way that you couldn't if you're seeing the full model. I think that's one of the reasons why the jump scares aren't as scary in the 3D, because you've got to keep with the model's dynamics, and you can't do a lot of what you could before. And especially considering the fact that in the newer games, you're seeing a lot more of the animatronics. In the first few games, it was more of the fear and not knowing what they look like. You don't really get close-up shots of them, and you don't really see them standing around. In the new games, you see them moving and just standing around and everything. So you gotta make them appealing and not just horrific daily, because it wouldn't make sense. FNAF worked on the basis that you didn't know what was going on and you were surviving this horrific thing that would pop out of nowhere. That isn't the case anymore. I mean, not even taking out theories and the deaths, because I'm fine with that. What I'm talking about is how they're portraying the game and showing it to, I guess, gets its newer audiences. Now the animatronics are front stage. You see them normally instead of just seeing them trying to kill you at night. It's a lot brighter. You can walk around, and there's a lot more backstory in this game. Not a lot of secrets, so not a lot of things are being hidden anymore, which was half the appeal of the game. And I'm not going to go into the Aftons and that whole thing because even that is theory-based, so it's not, we're talking about how the transitioning of this genre went. So that's not part of this at all. I feel like the changes come from the fact that FNAF 1 through FNAF 4, the focus wasn't animatronics. The focus was jump scares. It was waiting and jump scares. Sure, the animatronics were the gimmick of the games, but it wasn't why you came to the games. You came for the jump scares. You came for the dread of waiting things out in the 6 hours and in the 20/20/20 mode. That's why you came to this game. From, I would say, FNAF 5 to now, it's shifted from its horror roots to animatronics. Now the focus isn't on the jump scares, it's on the actual models in the story that they've hidden for so long that they're able to just flesh out now. So it's in a weird place where I wouldn't consider it a horror game anymore, or a horror franchise anymore. FNAF has, in simple terms, it's broken up into 2 segments, where it's got the horror and then it's got animatronics, or horror versus entertainment, because they're doing 2 different things. One of them is entertaining you through jump scares, one of them is entertaining you through more of like an action game sort of style. So I feel like the reason why people aren't listening to FNAF anymore, doing a lot about FNAF, is because there's a genre shift happening, and we're in the middle of it. The genre shift started at FNAF 5 because it's not the same. I mean, there's jump scares, but it was way more storytelling, and it was a lot more moving around and just doing little side missions. So it wasn't really a horror game. It wasn't really the jump scare game that we knew. FNAF 6, I would say, is an exception. Well, no, not FNAF 6. FNAF 6 split its game, so half of it was the jump scares and half of it was just working on your shop, like simulation game. So there's a shift happening there as well. Ultimate Custom Night hasn't done this. Ultimate Custom Night went back to its roots, and that's why I feel like people weren't ready for the big shift, because it was broken up by Ultimate Custom Night. So we just saw FNAF 5 and FNAF 6 as kind of weird outliers that were kind of trying to do something, but then they stopped. And so when we get to this game, FNAF 9 or 8, I don't remember which one is 8. I guess FNAF 8 is Ultimate Custom Night, but FNAF 9, the shift is in full effect. The shift has happened. It's a little wonky because people aren't used to it, but we have shifted from horror to something else. From a horror-based game to maybe action thriller. It's a clear shift. It's lost its place in the world or in the gaming scene because of this shift. And I think that's the reason why a lot of people are disappointed, even from gameplay and just release content. What I think is happening to FNAF is that it will abandon these horror roots. I don't see it staying. The only way I see it staying is sadly through peer pressure or gaming pressure from the community. But I don't think those games will be good because that's not a good environment to make games. But I think FNAF is leaving the horror genre. I think it's going to leave it entirely at some point, and it's just going to be an action thriller. If it gets to, even is thriller anymore, I feel like it's going into an action scene. Maybe this is the change of hands from Scott Cawthon, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just no one was told this was happening. A lot of the trailers and stuff were basing it off of what came before, and because of the genre shift, people were confused and didn't like the game because, in a way, we weren't advertised with the product that we were getting. So I think FNAF is changing, and I don't think it'll be this. I don't think it'll go back. I think horror is gone from FNAF. I know it probably wasn't that really scary anyway, but it's leaving its root. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's a thing that's happening, and as one area of FNAF is ending and another is probably beginning, I should point it out. It's funny that as FNAF is changing its genre, this is my last video. It's like the end of the era video. The end of the FNAF era. This is the end of a certain niche of FNAF, or a chapter. I don't know if chapter 2 is gonna be good, but it's gonna happen. I guess bye all of FNAF, and hello, part 2.